Welcome back to the Deep Dive. You've brought us a truly compelling stack of sources today, excerpts from H.G. Wells's novel and Veronica.
Yes, really interesting stuff.
And our mission is to really dig into this material together, pull out the core insights, and, those surprising details that paint a picture of this young woman who seems determined to break free.
That's right. We're going to unpack Anne Veronica Stanley's journey as Wells presents it in these specific passages, really try to understand her struggle against the very specific constraints of early 20th century England.
And the different reactions she encounters along the way as she seeks independence.
Exactly.
So who is Anne Veronica when we first meet her in these sources? She's 21 and a half, right? Outwardly, she has this quiet reserve.
On the surface.
But underneath that, the sources tell us she's wildly discontented and eager for freedom in life. That contrast itself is pretty striking.
It really is. And the setting is so important here, early 20th century England. It was a time when expectations for women were incredibly rigid. You just didn't step outside the lines.
So her fight is fundamentally against those established norms, trying to find her own way.
And these excerpts give us a front row seat to that struggle, the challenges, the reactions.
Okay, let's dive in. Let's start with the world. She was trying to escape what the sources call her wrapped world. That's a powerful phrase.
It really captures the feeling, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Especially her early life, her school days. It wasn't just that there were rules. The world was very clear about what she should and shouldn't do.
Right.
Except, crucially, when it came to anything about romance or, being in love and getting married, there, the guidance just stopped. She was actually told not to think about it. Firmly.
And there's this strong societal judgment around it, too, from schoolmistresses, older students.
Even her aunts, yes. They looked on girls who did think about those things with contempt and pity.
So the message was, good girls don't go there.
Pretty much. But the sources make it clear Anne Veronica found it, a difficult matter not to think of these things. How could she not? And this created a kind of vacuum. Romantic interests were off limits. There was no other clear path for her. Her world just had no particular place for her at all.
Just a functionless existence at home.
Exactly. Stifling.
And that functionless existence sounds pretty dull from the description. Calls, tennis, approved novels, walks, dusting.
Not exactly thrilling.
Clearly not enough for her. The sources show she desperately wanted more. Specifically to study. She was a clever girl, top of her class.
Oh yeah, very bright. And she made a valiant fight for Somerville or Newnham proper higher education.
This is where her father, Mr. Stanley, enters the picture as a major obstacle, isn't it?
Yes. He'd apparently met a woman who'd been to Somerville and was utterly convinced that higher education unsexed a woman. His ideal for Anne Veronica was simple.
Stay home.
Stay home, be decorative, be useful to him.
And his perspective on daughters, as laid out in these sources, is quite something. He didn't just want them home. He saw them as his absolute property.
Bound to obey him.
They were his to give away, or his to keep to be a comfort in his declining years. It sounds almost like a business deal.
It does. A reasonable return for the cares and expenses of raising them. That's the phrasing. It's a very clear patriarchal view.
Laid bare. And it's interesting, the contrast with his own life reading healthy light fiction with chromatic titles to distract his mind, or reading the Times.
His world was contained, sure, but he expected hers to be even more so, much more.
So they eventually land on a compromise, this science course at Treadgold Women's College.
Right. A step, but not what she really wanted.
And she clearly excels there, shows an acute sense of form and unusual mental lucidity, especially in biology.
There's that great little detail, isn't there, about her noticing her instructress was hopelessly wrong and foggy on the skull.
Yeah, it just highlights how sharp she is.
Absolutely. Shows her aptitude, but also her impatience with, second-rate teaching. She quickly feels she's outgrown Treadgold.
And sets her sights higher.
On the Imperial College at Westminster. The fountainhead, she calls it, where the famous scientist Russell taught. That's where she felt she could really learn.
And this intellectual ambition seems to mirror her growing rebellion in other ways, too.
Definitely. She's reading voraciously, but it's not just reading. She's actually smuggling books past her aunt's censorship.
So even reading becomes an act of defiance.
Yes. And she's seeking out the theater, trying to expand her world beyond the four walls of home.
These quiet rebellions, though, they eventually lead to direct conflict with her father.
Inevitably. We see it really clearly in that scene where he lectures her about the prowling pitfalls, waiting for young girls.
Insisting she needs shielding at all costs.
But his focus seems less on her actual safety and more on her reputation, avoiding the proximity of evil. He frames it as him acting for the best against her odd disposition toward extravagant enterprises.
It feels like it's more about appearances, doesn't it? There's that awkward moment with Mr. Ramage, the broker.
Yes, where Mr. Stanley gets annoyed because Anne Veronica overheard him discussing private matters with her.
It's like he doesn't even want their own controlled interactions to be witnessed.
Exactly. The control is absolute. And we hear echoes of this kind of thinking in the conversation with Mr. Ogilvy.
Ah, the one whose daughter had the unhappy, unconventional marriage.
That's the one. Ogilvy complains that girls didn't get these extravagant ideas or didn't run about so much in the past. It's not just nostalgia. It's clear disapproval of women pushing boundaries.
All of this leads to Anne Veronica's intense frustration with her father's refusal to actually discuss things properly.
She reflects that men never have a reason when he shuts down any reasoned argument. It's not just about freedom anymore. It's about the lack of respect, the lack of logic in his control.
And that seems to be the tipping point.
It really is. She feels trapped, unheard, fundamentally misunderstood. The sources capture that feeling intensely.
Leading to that internal declaration.
She
won't stand it even now.
The decision is made. She has to get out.
And that decision, well, it causes quite a stir. She turns to the Widget family for help.
And their reaction is just pure dismay. They immediately jump to the practicalities. How will you manage a loan? Where will you stay? How will you possibly pay for it?
Their questions really highlight how radical her choice was back then. An unmarried woman leaving her father's house.
Almost unthinkable for them. But Anne Veronica is firm. She says she has money, which is crucial, and declares anything is better than this stifled life down here.
So the Widgets eventually help, lending her luggage a hold-all. A communal trunk.
Yeah, it's a mix of shock and perhaps reluctant support. They help her get away.
Her arrival in London is described in such vivid detail. At first, her heart sinks.
Understandably.
There's confusion about finding a hotel on her own, that little mix-up with the luggage at Waterloo.
Right.
It's the immediate slap of reality, being completely on her own.
But then, walking out into the city, there's this sudden shift. A peculiar exaltation of panic and defiance.
A vast, unexampled release.
Yes. For a moment, it's that thrilling feeling of freedom, unseen, unbound.
But that freedom is tested almost immediately. She gets accosted by a queer old gentleman with a wheedling voice.
A small interaction, but the sources note it ruffled her.
And it seems significant.
I think so, because it forces this sudden, uncomfortable awareness. She realizes the incidental aspect of those sides of life about which girls are expected to know nothing.
The unspoken dangers.
Exactly. The hidden realities that were always kept ineffably remote by convention, but are suddenly extraordinarily relevant. Now she's independent. She can't just ignore them.
And then it gets worse. She describes being followed by a man, getting lost.
The city, which felt like freedom moments before, transforms into something sinister, threatening, monstrous inhumanity.
The pursuit feels like a supreme, ugly fact.
It's chilling. She loses her nerve, feels driven, genuinely afraid. It vividly shows the flip side of her freedom, the real vulnerability of an unaccompanied young woman.
Her search for lodgings takes her through what sounds like the sordid underside of life.
Houses with a mysterious taint, women with hard, defiant eyes, hiding behind friendly manners. It all leaves her feeling perplexed and troubled, deeply unsettled.
Until she finally finds a decent place near Hampstead Road.
Yes, and the sources convey this sense of relief, an exceptional quality of space and order. A tall woman with a kindly face as the landlady.
She tells the landlady she's a student.
Right, to save explanations.
And the room itself sounds like a haven after what she's been through. Green paper, bright chintz, bookshelves, a breathing space.
A temporary sanctuary, at least.
But the family drama isn't finished just because she's moved out. Her aunt shows up at the lodgings.
Appalled, calling it an unheard of thing, predictable, perhaps.
And then her father arrives. His reaction sounds visceral, a white face trembling.
And the sources reveal his immediate assumption. He thought she'd run off with some man. He actually asks, what else could he think?
Which tells you everything about his mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. His relief when he gets her letter quickly turns to anger. He dismisses her entire act of independence as just a practical joke.
The confrontation sounds emotionally draining. He swings between pleading, poor child, and anger, invoking family affection.
And Anne Veronica's retort is so sharp. If her mother were alive, she would understand. It highlights that lack of maternal understanding, perhaps her mother's own suppressed life.
She feels incompetent, undignified during the argument, but holds on to a hardening antagonism.
Her resolve is clear. She will live her own life. His intention is equally clear, with contempt and insults to prevent her. Nothing constructive.
And then he delivers the final ultimatum, shaking his umbrella for good measure.
Not a penny, not one penny, and never darken your doors again. Total severance.
But Aunt Veronica, though tearful, accepts it with a reciprocal passion. The sources say she stands up to him with an equality that amazed even herself.
She accepts the terms, she's made her choice, and she owns the consequences, head on.
Then her brother visits, offering a different kind of resistance, more practical, cynical.
Yeah, he tells her to ditch this lark, says it's damned hard for a girl alone. No illusions there.
His view is brutally pragmatic, from his perspective anyway. The only real trade for a woman, he says, is to get hold of a man and make him do it for her.
Anything else is just being sweated to the bone.
No.
He tries to justify this with talk of providence and the order of the world.
Dismissing her aspirations as woman who did no damn good.
Right. And critically, he makes it clear he can't help her financially. It's a harsh reality check about the economic situation for women.
Then in contrast, you have Mr. Manning arriving.
Yes, distressed by her situation, but romanticizing her as a splendid princess in exile. He offers support.
But Aunt Veronica isn't buying into his fantasy anymore, is she?
No, she's clear-eyed now. She punctures his guarding close image and lays out the blunt reality of her position. No more illusions.
Their conversation also highlights another clash. Her desire for a vote versus his idea that women's power is just influence.
He even offers her his votes, which she pointedly chooses to misunderstand. It shows how even sympathetic men struggle to see women as independent political actors.
So, needing money, Aunt Veronica tries to find work and discovers it's incredibly hard.
The source's state jobs are fearfully ill-paid and demand all her time and energy. Even just getting to see editors is a struggle.
It really underscores the limited options for educated women outside marriage or family support.
She gets a brief bit of respite back at Treadgold doing dissection work, a return to the intellectual world she actually enjoys.
And there's a very strange job prospect mentioned.
Oh, the amanuensis nurse role for the gentleman researching the fairy queen as molecular chemistry. Bizarre.
Completely bizarre. But it shows the odd corner she had to explore.
Definitely. Amidst this struggle, though, she starts encountering new social ideas. Miss Miniver visits.
Full of tremulous enthusiasm, seeing Aunt Veronica's defiance is glorious and resolute.
Miss Miniver represents a different kind of rebellion. Very passionate. Sees the world as brutal, superstitious, confused, and women, the children of light, must fight against it.
She had some strong views of maternity as women's undoing hostility towards men.
Yes, quite forceful. But her main point really resonates with Aunt Veronica. The vote is crucial. Until we have the vote, that is how things will be. Political power is key.
She introduces Aunt Veronica to this whole world of social and political discussion. Tolstoy, Shaw, vegetarianism.
Aunt Veronica finds it all a bit of a fluent muddle, maybe doesn't quite get the bitter vindictiveness, but she senses something real in it. It's exposure to collective action, new ideas.
And then Remish pops up again at one of these meetings.
Yes, acknowledging the harsh reality she's facing, that the world presented a large, impenetrable back and only offered drudgery wages. He sees her struggle.
He also states his view on a woman's specialty being sex and love.
Which the sources say made Aunt Veronica wince. Understandably. It's such a conventional, almost transactional view.
Especially coming from someone showing interest in her.
But then he makes that surprising offer. Financial support alone, with 5% interest specifically so she can continue her studies or training.
He frames it very pragmatically, doesn't he? As an investment in her becoming worth a decent freedom.
Yes. Though his curiosity about her leaving home, calling it rather a lark, adds this odd layer to his motives. Is he serious? Is it a game?
Despite her reservations, though, his offer seems to be what enables her next step.
It appears so. Aunt Veronica returns to Imperial College, studying biology under Russell and Capes. Back to her real passion.
The sources describe the academic environment. Russell's lectures, Capes' hands-on demonstrations.
It's a return to a place where her intellect is actually valued. She's interacting with other students.
Including that spectacled Scotchman.
Ah, yes, whose compliment about her dissections being high above the normal female standard is so revealing.
A classic backhanded compliment. Shows the ingrained biases even there.
Exactly. But as she navigates this world, her focus starts to shift internally.
The sources say her thoughts begin turning towards love, influenced perhaps by everything she's been through, maybe even Ramage's bluntness.
Could be. And she starts challenging conventional prudery, asking Miss Miniver, don't we all rather humbug about the coarseness? She wants honesty about physical reality.
And then comes that pivotal moment with Capes.
Yes. It's described so vividly, seeing the fine golden down on his cheek in the sunlight.
And at the sight, something leaped within her.
A sudden, physical, undeniable recognition of feeling.
Her initial experience of loving him sounds quite pure, all-sufficient.
Yes, just wanting him as her beloved person, experiencing self-forgetfulness, pure delighting.
And interestingly, she notes she doesn't want him to love her back yet.
Right, that would make her defensive. He just wants to experience the feeling itself first, without complication.
They continue having intellectual discussions, like the one about beauty, her mystical way versus his more scientific view.
It shows their connection is intellectual too, but maybe hints at their different approaches to life, you know?
Meanwhile, Ramage is still in the picture. He takes her to the Tristan Opera.
And his reaction to the music is intense. He connects it directly to love, life's passion.
And Veronica senses he's building up to something personal and tries to head him off.
She feels the weight of his intentions, but he pushes forward during the opera itself.
His declaration comes, described almost like a voice heard in a badly connected telephone over the music.
I have loved you. I want you beyond measure or reckoning. Very dramatic.
And Veronica's reaction is immediate shutdown. This isn't the place. You have misunderstood.
Clearly taken aback, trying to regain control of the situation.
But the situation escalates dramatically later, at dinner.
Yes, Ramage arranges a private room, and then he turns the key in the door.
That's the critical moment.
Absolutely. He says, now, we are alone, we can say and do what we please, we two. It's a clear violation, trapping her, moving into a world of unknown usages.
And then the physical confrontation. He grabs her, kisses her.
Her internal reaction is described with such raw intensity. Her universe, world head over heels, pure hate, wanting to kill him, struggling, biting his hand.
Demanding, why did you dare to do that?
But her feelings afterwards are incredibly complex, aren't they? There's anger, disgust, yes, but also this strange sense of being highly excited, finding it a very great lark indeed.
She's not afraid of him anymore, apparently. Even has unaccountable gleams of sympathy and liking.
Yet she absolutely condemns the sensation of the kiss. It's this whirlwind of conflicting feelings about power, violation, maybe her own suppressed responses coming to the surface.
Ramage's behavior is erratic, too. First possessive, you're mine. I've paid for you. I'm going to conquer you somehow.
Then collapsing into this confused, pleading apology driven by acute, tormenting desire, he seems completely overwhelmed himself.
It leaves Veronica utterly distressed back at her lodgings, quivering with shame and self-disgust.
Feeling she's in a mess, a nasty mess, a filthy mess. The loan now feels completely tainted, smeary. She feels mauled about.
Her immediate action is very telling. She sends the money straight back.
Decisive. She feels she must save face, cannot possibly tell her father about this debt. The thought of going home defeated is intolerable.
This awful incident seems to act as a catalyst, pushing her towards more public action.
It seems that way. She visits the Women's Bond of Freedom, meets Kitty Brett.
And Kitty's passionate argument for the vote, freedom, citizenship, economic power really strikes a chord. Kitty urges women to keep on hammering.
And Veronica finds her voice there, declares she wants to do something. I want to hammer myself against all this that pens women in. She feels she'll stifle otherwise. It feels like a direct response to everything, the confinement, the violation.
This leads her to actually participate in a suffrage raid on the House of Commons.
For her, it's deeply personal, an attack upon the universe that would not let her live as she desired. Even if some aspects seem like wild, burlesque forms, she is in deadly earnest.
The description of the vans disgorging women against the Parliament buildings.
It captures the energy, and Veronica feels wildest exhilaration. She's finally taking direct action.
Which leads to her arrest and a court appearance.
And the magistrate's reaction is so dismissive, isn't it? Calling her a good-looking, strong, respectable gal who just needs something better to do with her exuberance. Patronizing.
Prison is the implied result.
And her time in prison brings her thoughts back to Capes, arguing with him in her head, needing his expert advice, his intellectual companionship.
She also has a negative reaction to another prisoner, a hoydenish ragger.
Yes, which makes her see the suffrage movement itself as potentially defective in some ways. She maintains a critical eye.
And practically, she regrets burning the money from Ramage.
Why in the name of goodness did I burn that 20 pounds? It shows the real, tangible cost of her impulsive, principled actions.
The sources then imply she returns home after prison.
Yes! Her father's reaction is relief. He latches onto a phrase from her letter about needing time for thinking. Convenient for him.
He agrees to let her go back to Imperial College, but with strings attached.
Big strings, if it will keep you busy and so long as you keep in harmony with things at home. He still voices doubts about Russell's work, reminds her she's of age, subtly shifting responsibility while keeping control.
And this return forces a really difficult confession.
Yeah.
She's in debt.
Her father's shock is intense. Never.
She gives this partial, awkward explanation: lodgings, college fees, mentioning her time in Holloway.
And crucially, she lies. Claims she borrowed the money from the widgets. Specifies 8 pounds, so she needs 15 pounds total. Claims she pawned her necklace and watch.
A whole fabrication to cover the Ramage loan.
Exactly. Mr. Stanley agrees to pay the 8 pounds, but uses it as another chance to lecture her about reality, how things are, the need for limitations. Even helping comes with a lesson.
Back at college, she talks with Capes. He admits her memory haunted him.
Says he felt rude and stupid about how he'd dismissed suffrage before. He's been thinking about her.
And Veronica, though, perhaps protecting herself, downplays the prison time. Says she was just worried and needed to cool off like a dog eats grass.
Trying to seem unaffected, maybe. Keep things on an even keel.
But even back in her studies, that disagreeable sense of unsolved problems lingers, especially Ramage. She sees him in Morningside Park and actively avoids him.
That encounter still has power over her. It's unresolved baggage.
And then, another complication, she actually gets engaged to Mr. Manning.
Receives his great-aunt's sapphire ring. It represents that conventional path, safety perhaps.
The ring clearly weighs on her mind. She awkwardly tries to show it to Capes, tells him it's an engagement ring, given to me last week.
And his reaction is so revealingly flat. A colorless, oh! Compares the ring to finding an unexpected long wing on a house. Such a detached intellectual response.
That moment, showing him the ring, seeing his reaction, it triggers an instant of illumination for her.
She realizes the engagement is the crowning blunder of her life. His lack of reaction clarifies her own true feelings.
So she acts quickly, is honest with Manning.
Tells him she doesn't truly want to marry him, feels shabby and disgraced, admits there's something more, meaning her feelings for someone else.
His distress is real, but she knows she can't go through with it. It's painful, but necessary.
Capes is clearly affected after she breaks it off with Manning. He seems depressed, talks about the stir of spring making him want to bolt. He's feeling the pressure, too.
Which leads to that incredibly difficult, pivotal conversation between them. She makes her confession implicitly about her feelings for him.
And his response is this very deliberate, almost cold question. Who is the man? Trying to maintain distance, perhaps.
Her internal reaction is panic, paralysis, shame. A moment of intense vulnerability.
But she pushes through it, makes that bold declaration. Rules are for every day. This is not every day. This is something above all rules.
She's placing her feelings, their connection, outside of societal convention, elevating it.
Kix acknowledges she's put him in an exceptional position, but his conclusion is pragmatic. Constrained by his circumstances, they can't possibly be lovers in the ordinary sense.
His proposal. The compromise.
But we can be great and intimate friends. Trying to find a permissible way forward.
The scene ends with these eloquent silences, and Veronica says the discussion is exhausted.
Capes agrees gravely, and then in that moment of shared, difficult understanding, he takes her in his arms and very tenderly kisses her lips.
Not a passionate kiss, but one of deep connection, acknowledging their shared reality.
And that kiss changes everything. The next Sunday, they're together in Richmond Park. The atmosphere is described as clean freshness of spring and youth.
Love with the down on, innocence upon us. There's a sense of ease just being together uninterruptedly.
But they're not naive. They talk openly about the challenges, about facing society's judgment.
Capes lays it out bluntly. Endless reasons not to be together. It's wrong in the eyes of most people. It will smirch us forever, be a social isolation struggle. He doesn't sugarcoat it.
And Veronica's response is just so powerful. If you dare, I dare. She says she's never so clear.
She sees Capes as unique, necessary to life. Nothing else weighs against that for her.
Scandal, difficulty, struggle, she says. She rather wants them. This is the ultimate expression of her choosing her own path, whatever the cost.
Interestingly, though, even in the midst of all this emotional intensity, she stays focused on her studies.
Working hard for her pride's sake, calls herself a hard young woman, determined not to be drowned in the seas of emotion. She's integrating her intellectual life with her personal life. One doesn't cancel the other out.
Leading up to their departure for Switzerland, there's this feeling of rising excitement, a secret and delicious exultation.
She sees the rest of the world as just a dim audience to her personal drama. She's living her life fully, on her terms now.
Their journey to Switzerland sounds idyllic, crossing the channel, the train, walking to Blausee, lunching, paddling on the lake.
Easy, natural. As if they'd lived together 20 years, a real sense of rightness between them.
But the trouble of society follows them, doesn't it? Telling her family is hard. She feels she's struck them unawares.
Wishes people thought alike about these things. But they don't. That's the reality they face.
Which leads her to concoct that story, implying they got married quietly, maybe at a registry.
She feels she can't face a conventional wedding because of her father's hatred for Capes and his work. It's a compromise with the truth.
And Capes finds the lie difficult, feels inhuman. It shows the immediate cost of their choice.
And Veronica reflects on it, saying, I'm a female thing at bottom. I want my things. It's complex, acknowledging perhaps a desire for some normalcy or acceptance, even on this radical path.
At Blau, they have that fascinating discussion. Morality versus adventure.
Capes sees life as a mix. Morality is keeping bounds. Adventure is breaking bounds. He sees what they're doing as technically wrong by society's rules, but does it without compunction. A tension there.
And Veronica completely disagrees. For her, this feels profoundly right. I never felt so absolutely right, she says.
This is my thing. For her, their relationship isn't breaking rules. It is her moral compass now.
Their time above the inn sounds deeply connected, loitered, made love, deep silences. They talk about facing the flabby, loose-willed world.
Even that 40-pound debt to Ramage comes up again.
Yeah.
And Veronica notes how Capes seems to obliterate things. His presence helps her move past old troubles.
Then high on the rocks above the Feed Glacier, Capes has that rather dramatic thought.
About a shared death. The glissade off the edge. As a way to be together forever, free from problems.
And Veronica senses he doesn't really mean it, but likes the romantic absolutism of the idea.
And Capes confirms he doesn't. Living, he says, is better, more complex. Their choice isn't damn scoundrelism or swindling. It's about building a real life.
He declares, we're going to live, Aunt Veronica. Oh, the things we'll do, the life we'll lead.
His vision is optimistic, proactive, overcome trouble, fight the old world, do meaningful work, unfold about each other, even have children. It's a commitment to life together.
And Veronica's response is pure ecstasy, joy, gratitude. She feels she was like a priestess who knew nothing until him.
All her past discontent she now sees as love's birth pangs. It's a complete validation of her journey and her choice, finding fulfillment entirely on her own terms.
So their unconventional path leads them back, setting up an apartment together, a space that feels completely right to them.
And Veronica wonders how her family will seem now, from this new vantage point.
They host a dinner for her father and aunt, and Veronica carefully manages the evening.
Initial awkwardness, yes, but they navigate conversation letters, art, censorship, carefully avoiding genetics, Mendelian topics. Her father holds forth on vicious, corrupting fiction. Typical.
But Aunt Veronica sees him differently now. Really differently. For the first time, she observes him dining out as her equal.
Notices he's almost deferential to Capes. She feels she's grown right past her father into something older and of infinitely wider outlook. He seems like a flattened figure to her now.
Quite a shift in perspective.
And Capes, watching her navigate this, sees her not just as the defiant girl, but as supremely beautiful.
The sources conclude with this quiet, intimate moment between them. Capes holds her, whispers, blood of my heart. No. Understand.
It's this deep acknowledgement of everything they've been through, the bond they've forged completely outside the lines society drew for them.
Looking back at these powerful excerpts, Aunt Veronica's story is just, well, it's an incredible example of defying constraints, isn't it?
Absolutely. From feeling wrapped in a world with no real place for her, she systematically dismantles the barriers, her father's control, society's expectations, even her own doubts.
To forge a life defined by her own desires, her intellect, and this partnership built on mutual respect and, frankly, shared struggle.
And her path is anything but easy. Rejection, vulnerability, financial hardship, prison, difficult emotional clashes, that really disturbing encounter with Ramage.
But each challenge seems to harden her resolve, clarify what she truly values.
Ultimately, these sources show a young woman choosing radical honesty even when it involves compromises and lies, to navigate the world, to live authentically with the person she feels is necessary to life.
She finds her fulfillment not by conforming, but by breaking the bounds and building something new with Capes.
And Veronica's journey really leaves us thinking about freedom and the cost of living truly authentically.
So the question for you listening might be this. If forging your own path means breaking those established bounds and facing judgment, is that cost worth the profound sense of rightness and Veronica seems to find? In a world full of external pressures, what is the ultimate measure of a life lived truly on one's own terms?